country. We want people to come back in, but we have to let them come back in, but they have to come in legally. They have to come in legally.
Donald Trump there at what he's calling a victory speech. We should stress that we are not yet projecting a Donald Trump win, though that does seem uncertain. The BBC's Neda Tawfik is at the Trump HQ in Palm Beach in Florida and joins us now. I imagine it's quite a party, Neda.
People are literally dancing out of the hall. They are just leaving after Donald Trump addressed them with his entire family on the stage, including those who hadn't been next to him in quite some time, like Ivanka Trump and her husband, Jared Kushner, who were formerly with him in the White House. But supporters here are absolutely jubilant. I mean, there were moments where you could just feel the excitement rippling through the crowd as they were waving their hands in the air, throwing their MAGA hats, waving those in the air as well, just kind of screaming, chanting USA. Because I think even for them, there was a little bit of disbelief at just how well Donald Trump has done in this election. They had always said they felt confident, but speaking to them, many had said they had braced themselves for potentially waiting days for a result. And while we don't have a final result yet, as you say, it's all but certain that he will be the next president of the United States. So his supporters just absolutely jubilant, overjoyed here today.
What stood out for you, Neda, in the remarks that former President Trump made?
I think it was really interesting that he said that America had given him an unprecedented and powerful mandate. I think Donald Trump certainly believes that. He, in all of his campaign speeches, kind of harped on this idea that America is broken and only he can fix it, asking voters, you know, ask yourself, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And saying that if the Biden-Harris campaign were serious about fixing things like immigration or the economy, that they would have done it. Now, you can argue all around that the Biden administration and its success, but whether Americans really felt some of those successes. But nevertheless, Donald Trump feels he has a mandate to move forward with some sweeping proposals that he has. For example, the largest deportation effort in history he wants to implement. He wants to end birthright citizenship. So while he told supporters in the nation that he's going to help the country heal, I don't think that will sound very comforting for those who don't agree with his agenda, because this is still, of course, a divided nation and divided on very key policy differences. Donald Trump did keep a more positive tone throughout this speech, far more than his ones in the past, and did say that this was a success and a privilege that he would take very seriously, and that he would work very hard for the country.
Yeah, he talked about for healing, didn't he? In terms of his supporters, Donald Trump says he has this very strong mandate. What will his supporters demand be? What will they want to see from the Trump administration?
Well, look, I think they've been very clear, his supporters, that they want to see a number of things. When he says drill, baby, drill, he wants to, he has told his supporters that he will tap into America's energy, making it a leader in the world, drilling. He won't really concern himself with environmental regulations. He has said that it was interesting that he won part of the union vote. Was really battling with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for the union vote. He has talked about things, for example, like not taxing tips and other types of wages like that. So in terms of tax cuts for corporations, that's one side, but also appealing to workers with other things. As I said, immigration, he has proposed some sweeping changes there. So it is a very different direction. I mean, that was always what was at stake in this election, a very different direction for the country, for America. And his supporters will want him to go full force on those promises when it comes to immigration and the economy. interestingly, he's speaking to companies who support Donald Trump that were hit hard. Their companies lost business and had to fire some employees because of the impact of tariffs on them. They still think it's important for America to protect its trade and to fight back against some of these factors that are hurting them.
Let us have in Florida at Trump HQ. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, let's head to the other side of the country and go to California and speak with Linda Martin. You're joining us from San Francisco. Good evening to you. We've been hearing about jubilant mood, celebratory mood from the Trump headquarters in Florida as he thanked his family and his supporters. Are you also in a jubilant mood this evening?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm happy, but it's hard to celebrate knowing that half the country is going to be so upset, and I really do worry about the reaction of those that weren't supporting Trump. So I'm not really celebrating as much as you see other people celebrating, but I am relieved.
What are your worries about what could happen?
Well, we're so divided, and I live in a state that's blue, so...
Blue meaning the lean Democrat?
Yes. Matter of fact, where I'm from is where Kamala Harris is from. And so in this area, there could be, I expect there could be some protests, and it could get ugly. I just, that's my concern, and I hope that Trump, while he's not known for unifying everybody, I hope that somehow he can do that, because I do worry about it.
I was about to ask you about that actually, because part of his speech he was talking about looking forward and wanting to heal the country. Clearly he understands those visions that you talk about there, Linda. How do you see him do that? Because he's been a man who's often been described as divisive himself.
Yeah, I think it's going to take not only effort from him, but the media and people who have this impression of him as, say, being a dictator. There's been a lot of rhetoric surrounding the election, and I just hope that he can remind people, and maybe the media can as well, that when he was in office the first time, he wasn't a dictator. Things, we didn't go into a world war. Things aren't as bad as sometimes they were portrayed to be during the election cycle.
What do you hope or see? What are the prospects of the United States in the coming 4 years if and when it's decided or it's been declared that he is going to be the next president of your country?
Yeah, I know that the border and immigration is probably one of his top issues, and I know that's a large reason why he was probably elected. So I do want to see the borders closed and made more safe. But I hope that he can do this in a humane way, and I think, I'm hoping that he can find a way for the people who are here, for the people who haven't committed crimes, to not disrupt their lives more than necessary. I just want him to do things in a humane way, because this is going to be difficult. And we're looking forward to drilling more in the United States to help with gas prices. Again, living in California, I've been hit with really high gas prices. They've been over $5 a gallon. They've come down a little.
Yeah, something that we've heard from many of the people we've spoken to in the course of the last year and many more months before this election. Even when people went to the polls. Well, Linda Martin, thank you so much for taking the time. She was speaking to us from San Francisco, California.
I'm going to stay in California, actually. Get the other's perspective. Giovanni Chavez is president of the California Young Democrats. Welcome to Newsday. We heard there from a Republican voter concerned about what the reaction of Democrats was going to be. So how are you and others reacting?
Well, I find that pretty hilarious actually, because I remember in 2016 when Donald Trump won, we had a very peaceful reaction, which is the Women's March, which recruited thousands of women all across the country. And on the other hand, in 2020, when Joe Biden won, we had a non-peaceful reaction where a bunch of violent demonstrators stormed the Capitol. So I think Democrats will continue to be peaceful and organize and make sure that we recruit new folks into the political process and do that by peaceful means.
This is a huge blow to your side, isn't it?
I think there's a lot of macroeconomic issues that are happening now. We have inflation, low wages, soaring home prices, and I think a lot of people are feeling that angst and pain. And, Democrats were the receiving end of that. But we're going to do what we did in 2016, 2017, 2018. We're going to organize. We're going to continue to recruit new folks in the process, train our folks, recruit candidates, and we're going to make sure that we have a blue wave 2026.
Looking ahead then already. What did Kamala Harris do wrong?
Honestly, in terms of her messaging, I thought she was great. She really spoke about patriotism, freedom, and really targeted like a lot of folks that felt left out of the process. I just think it was a lot of the macroeconomic issues that really were hard to overcome for Democrats, because a lot of people are feeling that pain, and we understand that pain. And I think when Trump gets back to the Oval Office and he does the same thing he did the last time he was there, which is tax cuts for the rich and just delivering for corporate interests, I think folks will see that Democrats are the ones that stand for the issues that apply to all working families.
There's been a lot of concern expressed about how divided America is, about the possibilities of extremism, both sides accusing the other of tearing the country in a direction that isn't healthy. You sound more, listening to you, as though this is politics as normal. We've lost this one, we're going to change course, get the next one back. Is that how you see it?
No, this is not normal. This is not normal at all. I remember days when a political gaffe could end someone's career. I think the outlier here is Donald Trump himself. Donald Trump is someone that's very divisive, an outlier in politics, someone that implemented a Muslim ban the last time he was in office, wanted to ban transgender folks from the military, had his supporters storm the Capitol. I think the only way we move on past this divisiveness and get back to a place where we can have friendly disagreements is when we move beyond Trump. And clearly we haven't done that now, but in 4 years I think we'll be in a much better place.
Chavez, President of California Young Democrats, thank you very much indeed. Plenty of reaction coming in. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated his friend Donald Trump for his historic victory. Benjamin Netanyahu has said something similar. Prime Minister of Israel, congratulations in from Keir Starmer as well. And the head of NATO, the Western Defence Alliance, says that Donald Trump's leadership will again be key to keeping our alliance strong.
Well, from those reactions from other world leaders, well, let's look from the European perspective what a new potential Donald Trump term can mean or will mean for much of Europe. Well, let's now speak to Dr. Celia Belin, Senior Policy Fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations, joining us from Paris. Good morning to you and welcome to the program. So what does our new potential Donald Trump term mean for you?
Well, for Europe, it has to come as a reality check. Of course, quite a few European leaders had anticipated that this could happen and had been thinking very strongly on what would be the implications, but it will have very strong implications in terms of European security, in terms of the choices that Europe makes on its competitiveness, on its economic model. And the fact is this morning that European leaders must be in a rush to try and present a collective front to be able to answer what Donald Trump would inevitably put forward, which is priority to American interests first.
Donald Trump did say that if re-elected again and he becomes president again, that he would end the war in Ukraine on day one. Is that where we could see him coming in and having those negotiations, bringing both President Zelensky and President Putin on the table to discuss to end our war?
That's an electoral promise of Donald Trump, so we have to believe that he's going to try and deliver on it. He's the vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, who's now vice president-elect, had presented in September a sort of a peace plan, a plan that resembled very well something that actually favors Russian interests. So I think from a European perspective, what's really important if Donald Trump is to push for negotiations is that Europe makes sure it is at the table, not only to strengthen Ukraine's hand in order to be the best partners could be, but also because Europe has interest that it needs to defend as well in this war. We wouldn't want to see this war settle in a compromise that favors Russia so much that it is able to attack again in a few years, or that Ukraine is so weak that it becomes entirely dependent on its Russia relations. So Europeans need to make sure that they tell Donald Trump and the new administration that this cannot be sustainable if Europe is not also at the table together with Ukrainians and Russian Americans.
He had a fractious relationship with NATO, the military alliance, and obviously when President Biden came in, he kind of reversed the policies, foreign policies that Mr. Trump had taken in terms of defense. Could we be seeing him coming back now, being more amenable to be on that side where they work together as a military alliance together against any potential attacks, or could he just go back to what he was when he was president in 2016?
I think Donald Trump has been skeptical of NATO for a long time, but the main criteria of his skepticism is how much do Europeans spend on their own defense. So it's been boiled down to numbers, and I think Europeans will try and make sure that they present the best possible numbers in terms of defense spending, and that the alliance is Trump-proof. So basically that it's sustainable even without a very strong American leadership. What's most important at this stage, I think, is to show that NATO can sustain some disinterest on part of the U.S., that there's no need to take rash or big decision from the Trump administration. And for that, I think Europeans will try to demonstrate that they've taken responsibility in the war in Ukraine, they've taken responsibility for their own defense, but no doubt that this morning quite a few European countries and leaders are worried, as they should be, for the alliance and for the defense of the continent.
I guess we'll wait and see what that new presidential term for Donald Trump will look like for Europe. Dr. Celia Berlin, thank you so much for your time.
Let's get the thoughts of Peter Trimowitz, Professor of International Relations at the London School of Economics, who's with us throughout this hour. One thing that is striking is it seems Donald Trump is on the verge of electoral victory. He looks set to win not just the Electoral College, how all the states giving their votes to him, but also the popular vote, and that doesn't always happen in American politics.
No, it doesn't, and I would say that would be it's one of the surprising parts of all of this. Is a lot of people knew that the Electoral College was really like a jump ball. It was up for grabs who was going to win it, or they believed it. All the polls showed that and so forth. But Harris had a margin that ranged between at 1.3% down to about 1% advantage in the popular vote, largely because of New York and California, where the expectation was that Democrats, would come out in very large numbers. And it's much closer than I think anybody would have expected. So we've had elections where, Donald Trump's victory in 2016, he lost the popular vote and he won the Electoral College. And this is, if he wins the popular vote, he's talking about how he has a mandate, or he will have a mandate, that will strengthen that argument. I think probably what's more significant is if he manages manages to pull a trifecta where he wins the presidency and he takes both, he's already taken, the Republicans have already taken the Senate, but if he takes the House as well. Currently, there are many seats that are outstanding in the House. It'll take a while to know what the result is.
But if he did, he could then presumably implement anything he wanted in his agenda.
Perhaps not anything that he wanted, but he would be in a much stronger position. So if he wants to push those tax cuts through, he's going to be able to do that. I think the Senate is quite important because he will be able to influence the shape, again, of the judiciary. And there are judges, including on the Supreme Court, who are likely to step down, and he will be in a position as president, assuming all of this plays out as it appears to be playing out, he'll be in a position to nominate people that are to the right, very conservative, and to shore up or consolidate.
今日も張り切って安全運転するのだ。出発するのだ。僕の案内は完璧なのだ。
Peter Tribbitt, thank you very much indeed, Professor of International Relations at the London School of Economics, in our studio today on this special extended edition of Newsday on the BBC World Service. We've got an hour and a half to go. We'll bring you all the latest developments as Donald Trump edges closer to a return to the White House.
Distribution of the BBC World Service in the U.S. is made possible by American Public Media, producer and distributor of award-winning public radio content. APM, American Public Media, with support from Rubrik. When cyber attacks put businesses at risk, Rubrik provides the power to bounce back fast. More at rubrik.com.
道なりに進むのだ。
Hi, this is Steve Inskeep with NPR's Morning Edition, which reminds you of the power of one human voice. You turn on the radio some morning or your device and you're listening to Morning Edition and you hear one person telling a story from the other side of the world or from a neighborhood near you. And that voice brings you understanding of the news. Listen to Morning Edition every day.
Weekdays 5 till 9 a.m. on News 88.7.
Hello, welcome to Newsday from the BBC World Service with Lina McGovern in Washington, and I'm James Cotnell in London.
Donald Trump has declared victory in the US presidential election. The result has not been confirmed, but one of our correspondents here in the States says it's all over but the shouting.
Yeah, Mr. Trump is poised to be only the second person to return to the White House after losing the election.
The last one, Grover Cleveland in 1893.
Donald Trump has claimed victory in the US presidential election, saying he's been given an unprecedented mandate. Mr. Trump said his second term in office would be a new golden age for America and promised, as he put it, to heal the country. Projections give most of the swing states, and his Republican Party is to take control of the Senate. The final results for the House of Representatives aren't clear yet, but the Republicans have gained 2 seats and could maintain their control of the chamber. It's too early to call the final outcome. The Democratic candidate, Kamala Harris, has not commented on the results. The mood in her campaign headquarters is said to be grim. The Israeli Prime Minister has described Mr. Trump's likely re-election as a new by Hungary's leader, Viktor Orban. President Zelensky of Ukraine said he hoped Mr. Trump would work to bring a just peace for his country. In many states, Americans also voted on abortion rights. A near complete ban was overturned in Missouri, and access for terminations was made easier in Arizona, but fuller rights were rejected in Florida. In other news, the United Nations estimate that there's been a marked increase in opium poppy cultivation in Afghanistan. It's up by almost 20%, although overall production is still much lower than before the Taliban takeover of the country. The 3 parties in the German coalition government are meeting today in an effort to patch up their growing disagreements. There have been fears that the Social Democrat-led administration could collapse. South Korea says most of the troops that the North sent to Russia haven't been deployed on the Ukrainian front yet. It described as an isolated incident, a reported That's the latest world news from the BBC.
Thank you very much.
ここで右の車線を進んで
Hello, welcome to Newsday.
その先
BBC World
右
Service.
に出るの
I'm
だ
James Conlon with our studios in London. And this
右の
half
出口を
hour,
出るのだ
joined by my colleague Nicola McGovern from our studio in Washington, D.C. Where the time is gone
飛ばしすぎなのだ
Nola's been up all night on the BBC World Service bringing us the developments as Americans vote for their next president. Nola, when you started broadcasting 10 hours or so ago, it's
もっとゆっくり走るのだ
election, not so much anymore.
Well, the night unfolded. Donald Trump definitely had the better night. And as we've heard in the past hour, he has declared victory. The BBC is not calling the results just yet. But I think it was such a roller coaster of a campaign. Even if we just look at some of the events in recent months, President Biden dropping out of the race, Kamala Harris stepping into the race, just 107 days of the campaign, not forgetting the assassination attempt that took place in Pennsylvania. But this night, it started going in Trump's favor from early on, and it never stopped. It was kind of a smooth ride for him, I think I might say, in that particular respect.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love your thoughts on that. You can send us a WhatsApp or text message on our usual number, +447786 20 50 85. Perhaps you'd like to respond to what Mr. Trump has said himself. He made what he considered a victory speech to his supporters in Florida.
Well, I want to thank you all very much. This is great. These are our friends. We have thousands of friends in this incredible movement. This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country. It may be. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal. Help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before. Nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day, I will be fighting for you. And with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to. This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again.
Former President Donald Trump making that speech in Florida, has his sights set on being president again, the 45th and the 47th. The only other president that managed to do non-consecutive terms, Grover Cleveland, but that was back in 1893. He was the 22nd and the 24th president. But the numbers we're looking at instead is for the 47th. With me in our Washington DC studios is statistical analyst Laksha Jain from SplitTicket.com, who's been with me over the past 10 hours. As we take a look after all those hours of votes being counted, how does it look for Mr. Trump?
I think for him, it looks potentially close to the best case scenario. If you had outlined the best case scenario for Donald Trump going into election night in timing, in results, in swing, this is what it would be.
We don't know the results on a granular level, Laksha, at times, looking at these small parts of a certain county that then made up part of a state. Is there an urban-rural divide? Is there...
No, I think for me, when I see this, I actually think that we spent a lot of time over the last 4 years talking about how voters are immovable and how it really takes something crazy to split them, but actually, to me, this just shows from voting behavior, voters will respond if they feel pushed enough. And it doesn't matter the demographic, it doesn't matter the coalition. If you push voters enough, they will swing against you.
And the push is?
Push here was prices.
Inflation. Like, basically, they go to the supermarket, the groceries are too high, too expensive, and even though inflation is on the way down in the United States, it didn't happen fast enough.
That's correct, and it's tied to Joe Biden's approval rating. He's at the lowest approvals any president has ever had in modern U.S. history, and that was a big reason that his vice president could not seal the deal tonight.
So basically, she inherited his numbers.
She inherited a very tough situation and got his numbers dragged around her, and as a result, she underperformed badly.
Interesting. I suppose with Donald Trump, then, it will begin, they will dissect exactly who turned out where, when, how, and what the picture of America is now when it comes to voting trends.
Yeah, and I would quickly say that people said before the election, oh, he's going to turn out young men in record amounts. Actually, he didn't win because of turning out young men in record amounts. He just won because he did better with everyone, and that's actually more impressive for a candidate than turning out a specific part of your coalition.
Really interesting. Thank you so much, Laksha, for bringing us all those numbers throughout the night. I hope you get a little bit of rest after this. As we hit, let me see, it's 3:39 here in Washington, D.C. But it kind of gives you a little snapshot of the picture that was perhaps definitely unexpected. What was the right word? Hoping that it wouldn't go in that direction for the Harris camp, but the Trump camp instead having a very good night.
Indeed, they are. Congratulations coming in from around the world, even though, as we say, Donald Trump still hasn't quite got past that 270 magic number of electoral college votes that he needs to ensure he is president. It seems that will happen at some point in the future. UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer, for example, says he congratulates Donald Trump on a historic election victory and says he's a closest of allies that will shoulder to shoulder in defence of our shared values of freedom, democracy and enterprise. We'll get some other thoughts from around the world, so let's head to Russia and speak to who joins us now from welcome to the programme. How should and will Russia respond to a new Donald Trump presidency?
Well, we'll always cheer a person, the new elected president, if it's legally, and people supported him, as we see, they supported him a lot. And I have been following the presidential campaign, and it looked very intense. And we're just glad to see that people had their chance to vote and to make the right choice. And I absolutely agree with you. I heard your previous comments that it was all about the internal issues that the United States has. And I won't pay so much attention on the external stage, that the primary point why people voted for Trump is the prices. And they just wanted their economy better. That's why they decided to make America great again with Donald Trump as a head of the state.
To his most vocal critics, Donald Trump is saying Vladimir Putin's pocket, that he will be easily influenced by the Kremlin. Do you agree with that?
Well, no, I don't agree. Because, it has been told during the time when Trump was elected the first time, and then I served time for that, and then they found no evidence that there was such a collusion between Trump and Russia. There were 2 reports by Mueller and by Duran, and they found nothing. I still serve time, who knows for what. But anyway, no, I think that Trump is very independent, that he has shown many times. And look, if somebody says that Trump had been pro-Russian before, well, he placed sanctions. He expose diplomats, and so he has not shown at all favorable to Russian position, though he is pro-American, and this is great. Any president should be pro his own country, so the country builds its sovereignty, and I just do hope for the peaceful and stable world, because nobody in this world wants the third world war.
Yeah, Maria mentioning their serving time in April 2019, federal judge sentenced her to 18 months in prison after pleading guilty to felony charges of conspiracy to act as an unregistered foreign agent of the Russian state. But I want to move on from that. Donald Trump has said that he will be able to end Russia's invasion of Ukraine in short order. What are you anticipating he attempts to do in terms of that conflict?
Well, it's a good question, because he promised to end all wars, which meant Israel and Palestine conflict instantly, like in 2 days or something. But I think this is his very passionate temper during the election campaign, and I just don't know the precedents in the history when any conflict would be ended just in 2 days. But I hope he will be moving that direction. Russia is very open and ready to negotiate with Ukraine and with all the parties who are involved in this conflict today. So we can read their desire of him to be a peacemaker. That's wonderful. Everybody wants peace.
Maria Matin, Member of Parliament from Russia, thank you very much indeed. This is Newsday on BBC World Service from Government in Washington DC. I'm James Harper in London, just to flag up. Podcast has just published its first episode of the day, covering the latest on the US election, as you might imagine. And you can hear the thoughts of the BBC's team in Washington DC, wherever you get your podcasts.
Let us turn to one of the issues that will be facing Donald Trump if I should say, because it still has not been called from, if he gets to the White House, that will be in January. But the Middle East, of course, looms large for whoever is in the White House. I want to bring in our correspondent, Joe Inwood, who's in Jerusalem. Welcome, Joe, to Newsday. The news coming through that Donald Trump is having a strong night, looking likely to be the next president-elect. He has always been a supporter of Israel. I mean, what can we expect in reaction to his success?
The reaction we're getting from here, it is very clear that he's already won. The Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has already congratulated him on his victory. He put a message out on X. He said, congratulations on history's greatest comeback. Your historic return to the White House offers a new beginning for America and a powerful recommitment to the great alliance between Israel and America. And that's basically the sentiment you see from all the politicians in government here, certainly. We've had Israel Katz, who's actually going to be the new defense minister, former foreign minister, sending his congratulations as well, saying he's going to strengthen the US-Israel alliance and bring back the hostages and stand firm to defeat the axis of evil led by Iran. We've had Israel Herzog, the president, sending his congratulations as well, and the far-right security minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, was a little easier in his language. He just said, yes, with many S's, God bless Trump. That was from Itamar Ben-Gvir. So from the governing politicians here, it's very much being welcomed, and I think that's because, as you say, Nuala, Donald Trump has always been very, very clear in his support for Israel. When he was president last time, he moved the American embassy to Jerusalem here, something which was very controversial in the rest of the world, but very popular amongst many people here. And I think Israel and Israeli politicians are expecting the next Trump presidency to be more of the same.
For Kamala Harris and also for President Biden, there was among Arab Americans a lot of anger as some Arab Americans see as a lack of action when it came to Palestinians. I'm wondering, are you getting reaction from Palestinians in the region?
We haven't seen reaction from Palestinians yet. We have from in Lebanon, the media there is putting out, of course, also Hezbollah in Lebanon, also war with Israel. We're seeing a skepticism, really, that this is going to change anything or do anything to bring an end to the war. And in the pro-Hezbollah media, they say that the open support of the American
or perhaps have a freer hand? I mean, this is more hypothetical.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that's worth saying to our listeners at this point is there is a huge deal of uncertainty. So I was doing a preview over what each candidate might mean yesterday, and the consensus was it's continuity versus unpredictability. And I think we do have to say, really, that we don't know at this point. I think there is no doubt that Donald Trump will be very firm in his commitment to Israel's right to defend itself, as it's always said, and will continue the support that's always been given. But there's another school of thought here, and I think this is really important to think about, that Donald Trump has made it very clear that he wants to be a president that ends wars. He's always said that. It's saying it and putting into action, of course, different things. But in his speech that we've just heard, he said, they said, I'm going to start wars, I'm going to end wars. And people here, it's been reported quite widely that Donald Trump has said to Prime Minister Netanyahu in the past that if he wants, now it seems he has, that he wants the various wars that Israel is involved in here, to the north with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and of course in Gaza with Hamas, he wants those ended by the time he takes office, by the time of his inauguration, because he wants to be able to present himself as the person that has brought these conflicts to an end. So conversely, although people will think he will be a far greater supporter of Israel, or a very, very strong supporter of Israel, he might also try and force action from the Israeli government in a way that President Biden and his administration seemingly has not been able to do.
Joe Edward speaking to us from Jerusalem. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and on that topic, actually, I'm just looking at the news flash from AFP, the French news agency. They are quoting a Hamas official. Line support for Israel must come to an end. But with us throughout the act, Peter Truman's Professor of International Relations at the London School of Economics. I wanted to actually start, if I could, looking at the international aspect then of what the Trump could mean, with a question we've had in, with a comment we've had in from a listener, Celestine Kajabi from Gambia, who says the power shift could be a big blow. Power shift, Donald Trump basically. Democrats to the White House, could be a big blow to the EU and to Ukraine. Is that how you see it?
Yes, I think there's something to that point. I mean, I would say, assuming it holds up, a Trump victory with respect to the EU, I think this goes beyond the EU, will fuel anti-globalist sentiment, populist sentiment. I think it would be among the clearest in Europe, just as it did in 2016. And I think people are not focused enough on that. That will have knock-on effects. I mean, if you think of just Meloni in Italy has kind of carved out a position where she's been kind of populist at home, but she has been, I think, much more moderate than people expected internationally, in part to deal with kind of cross pressures that she faced internationally. And I think those will ease with the Trump presidency. I think the concerns in Europe, there will be concerns about the implications of Trump's position on NATO and on Ukraine for European security, kind of more broadly. Look beyond some of the reporting that was just mentioned. I think it's really obvious it's in Moscow. I think both in the case of Putin and Netanyahu, their negotiating position vis-a-vis their respective adversaries, Kiev, Hamas and Hezbollah, will be bolstered by a Trump victory. It's less clear to me. I spent a fair amount of time in China.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
It's less clear to me how Beijing and Xi Jinping. I mean, in Beijing, I would say those focused on geoeconomics, they view Trump's victory as a risk and a threat at a time when the Chinese economy is really struggling and has slowed considerably. Those focused on geopolitics, it seems to me, they view this differently, more as an opportunity for Beijing to make strategic gains in
Donald Trump and I suppose his team have a coherent ideology, driving force when it comes to international relations, or is it perhaps a more haphazard wilderness here? What about that over there?
Well, I mean, first there's Trump himself. Imperial, and is what I would say is very transactional. And Donald Trump himself says that he likes to be viewed as kind of unstable and erratic because it gives him a strategic bargaining, a kind of tactical bargaining advantage when he's dealing with both friends and adversaries. I think another way to think about this is that under the kind of Trump umbrella, when you look at the types of foreign policy advisors that are in his orbit, they're divided. So there's the kind of Pompeo side, his former Secretary of State, who are pro-Ukraine, pushing back against Russia, more kind of a traditional support for European security and tough line on Iran, and I would say also on China. But then I think there are others who worry about American engagement, the possibility that America should not be in the business of promoting democracy, that America should focus on problems and challenges at home, that those should take priority, and to the extent that it engages in economic lessons.
And that's likely to appeal to some.
Indeed. So, I mean, Trump says he loves tariffs, and that, if you take him at his word, he is going to slap tariffs across the board. This will impact Europe, somewhere between 10 and 20%. For the Chinese, they get special treatment. It will be 60% or higher, they said. Now, I don't know whether we'll make good on those, but I think we can expect it to push in that direction.
Very concerned about that possibility, what that could do for Canada's economy, for example. Plenty of examples. Peter Tribowitz, Professor of International Relations at the London School of Economics. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to continue our coverage from London from another hour with more reaction from around the world. Donald Trump seems to be on the verge of securing, or improbable at one point, to come back to the White House. And Nuna McGovern is coming to the end of her marathon night covering this momentous election. 10 hours now, is it? 11 hours? I'm losing count. What about your final thoughts on the night from your presenter's chair in Washington, D.C.?
Yes, I guess it is something really of a monumental political comeback. You used to call Bill Clinton the comeback kid, but I think Donald Trump might take the moniker from him, being the 45th and 47th president. It'll be interesting to see what he decides to do with that administration in particular. I noticed in his speech he was giving at Florida, he says it is time to heal. Not usual language you would hear from Donald Trump. He also talked about fighting for every citizen. Could it be a change of tone? I don't know. There were just a couple of things that I picked up on when I was listening to him. I think in the coming days a lot of people will wonder exactly how some of the global conflicts, which of course you cover so much on Newsday, how he might attack those, which will be some of the first days in office. But I think that split country, what happens to it next? I think that's my biggest question, because no matter who you spoke to, there were very, very few undecideds over the past few months, or possibly even years. It's almost 2 years since Donald Trump announced his candidacy. Kamala Harris just got to run for 107 days.
Yes, Nuna McGovern. Thank you very much indeed. We'll let you go and get some sleep, or more likely present another hour to radio elsewhere.
How did you know? Thanks very much, James.
But yeah, just to recap then a little bit, you need 270 votes, 270 Electoral College. Well, Donald Trump, pretty confident in saying, has 266 of those, just on the verge of a return to the White House. The man himself, the former president, has made a speech declaring victory, and saying that it's time, as we were saying, to heal, but also to, well, what else? Make America Great Again were his big slogans. We have been hearing about how that is viewed around the world, from Russia to Israel to the European Union, and there will be plenty more to come on that. Another hour of news day.
右車線を進んで
Stay tuned.
その先
Service.
右出口なのだ
Read up on all the stats and all the explanations on the BBC website too.
右から出るのだ間もなく左方向なのだ
Houston Public Media is a service of the University of Houston and is supported with your gifts to the Houston Public Media Foundation. More information available online at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
All of us want to know what's going on, but only some of us want to know the why. That's where we come in. 1A is a place for the curious. Daily conversations for those looking to make sense of our world. I'm Jen White. I hope you'll join me next time for 1A.
Weekdays at 11 a.m. on News 88.7. This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. Remember, you can listen to us on your favorite devices. Just tell your smart speaker to play Houston Public Media.
Hello and welcome to Newsday on the BBC World Service with Victoria Wanhunda and James Cotnell. Great to have you with us.
We are bringing you the continuing developments and reactions to the US presidential election. And after a fast-moving night, it is Donald Trump who is celebrating the loudest.
So I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president.
Yeah, former president is poised to be the second person to have won back the White House after having lost an election.
Well, the BBC has yet to declare a final result in those elections, but already leaders from across the world have been congratulating Mr. Trump.
We'll get reaction throughout this hour.
But first, the very latest BBC World News.
Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. Donald Trump has declared victory in the US presidential election and promised a new golden age for America after pulling off what appears to be an astonishing political comeback. Addressing jubilant supporters at his campaign HQ in Florida, Mr. Trump said America had given him an unprecedented mandate and vowed to help heal the country.
I will govern by a simple motto: promises made, promises kept. We're going to keep our promises. Nothing will stop me from keeping my word to you, the people. We will make America safe, strong, prosperous, powerful, and free again. And I'm asking every citizen all across our land to join me in this noble and righteous endeavor. That's what it is. It's time to put the divisions of the past 4 years behind us. It's time to unite.
Although he hasn't yet officially won, Donald Trump is now just a few electoral college votes short of the 270 required to return to the White House. The mood in his opponent Kamala Harris's camp is said to be grim. Our Washington correspondent Gary O'Donoghue is at Republican headquarters.
Technically this isn't over, but let's be straight. This is all over bar the shouting. Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States. A man that was facing multiple scandals over his career, multiple court cases, criminal and civil, a conviction, a sentencing in 3 weeks' time, escaping death by a fraction from an assassin's bullet. And here he is, having persuaded what looks to be a majority of the American people to send him back to Washington and the White House for 4 more years into what he's going to call a glorious future, a new glorious age, he says, for America. It's something that will not just reverberate around this country, it will reverberate around the world.
World leaders have begun congratulating Donald Trump on his victory in the US presidential election. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Mr. Trump's return to the White House offered a powerful recommitment to the alliance between Israel and America. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he looked forward to a strong era for US-Ukrainian relations and that he was hopeful for continuing American support. France's President Macron said he was ready to work with Mr. Trump with respect and ambition while defending Europe's interests. Alongside the presidential race, America